Alright, welcome to today's build. Today we're going to be making a simple stopwatch or counter, and got a few new pieces of code we're going to teach you. And today's will be a little bit unique because there's no circuit to build. So let's jump into it. Let's open up a IDE and show you this new code and how it works. We're going to use some data types as well in this one. Keep things kind of neat looking and so forth. I often sometimes not even sure what to make my data types. I can't think that far ahead into the future. So usually as I'm putting my other code in, then I will remember, oh yeah, I should use a data type for this. So it'll just be what we use it for, integers. And this time around, since we're not using any pins, we don't need to do pin mode. However, we need to add serial begin. And serial begin, let me type the whole thing in first, is going to start and open up or allow our serial monitor to work. And that is a little button way over here in the upper right corner. If I click on that, this will open up, and this will all make a lot more sense when we start using the program. But this will allow me to see what's going on instead of the when I want my program to do something. In this case, make a little counter. I need to put that counter, the counting of my clock, 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, so forth. I need to see that somewhere. Where's that going to happen? So we can send that serially to the monitor here to my computer. Of course, later on we'll probably send it to an LCD screen, but this is a good first step. And the reason for the 9600, this is what's called the baud rate. Down here, I'm in the way, and let me move that over. In fact, let's move me down in the corner. A little timeout for Mr. Brower there. All right. Oh, and then I move it over next to me again. This is what I want you to look at right here, this baud rate. We got to make sure it matches whatever it is we put in the parentheses over here. And I've got 9,600. If I can switch it if I like. I could put in 19200, and I'd have to come down here and switch if I want things to go a little faster, if I'm interested in speed. And there's some other options here, quite a few options, and slower ones as well. We can go down to 300 real slow, but kind of the default one is 9600. And I don't remember the units for the baud. I think it's bits per second or something like that. I could be wrong. I'm just throwing out a guess there. All right, so we got to put that in there if we want to use the serial monitor. And now we're doing that in setup. I got my before and after brackets, so it's all enclosed there. It needs to happen just one time in setup, letting it know that we're going to be using this. This is the rate which we want to move information along. Now the interesting stuff. Now before we actually get to the calculator, we're going to toy around just a little bit. We're going to kind of figure out how these two next bits of code work. First one is serial print, and I'm going to put in something in parentheses, let's say hello, and close it just like that. And that's all we're going to do, and we're going to see what happens. So I've got my Arduino off in the corner here. You can't see previous build. I'm going to yank all those wires out, so now I've just got my Arduino plugged in. I'm going to double check to make sure I've got the board right and the comms right, or it's one it recognizes as Arduino. And we're going to upload this and see what happens. Another little experiment we're going to run here. All right, looks good. Now, it's kind of doing what it says. Serial means we're going to do things in order, one thing to the next thing, and we're going to print it. And where we're going to print it off to, we're going to send it off to the monitor in this case. And it looks like gibberish. I mean, kind of tell it says hello, hello, hello. Now down here in the corner, I can uncheck this and like freeze everything. It won't keep showing me what the new stuff is. But this is really kind of confusing. We'd like to get a better view of our information. So we can do a couple of things. Notice first off, let me take a look at it again. Everything is on the same line. Just the new hellos being added to the end of the old one. And we're going to clean that up a little bit. We're going to put in LN right here. And let's see what that does. We can make some quick changes and send them up to the monitor here. I'd like to just show you what's happening than me telling you what's happening. Now look at that. Now they're going down. So after it prints hello, the LN says, okay, the very next time we're going to print something, it's going to be on the next line, which is another little hello because we're in our loop. In between our loop, void loop brackets, we're telling it to say hello, and it does that, and it goes back and starts a new line and says hello again, and so on and so forth. And it's doing this quite rapidly, so perhaps we should slow this down a little bit. Let's do that so we can see things. Maybe let's do a second. Actually, now I'm being triggered to my head to say, hey, let's use a data type, integer, and let's call it delay time. And we're going to have that equal to 1,000 for now. We can change that later. So now we can put in delay time and pause. What do you think is going to happen? I'm not going to pause because I need that moment just to get this thing uploaded to my Arduino. There we go. Let's take a look, see what the change has done. Now it's going to each new line, but it's waiting a second. All right, let's do some more things to make this a little bit interesting. Let's say I get rid of the line and I do something like this. I'm just making things up on the fly here to give you a feel for, and do this with me, because if you're just watching me, it won't make as much sense. You won't remember it, certainly. I'm just putting the same command here, but I'm putting some parentheses and nothing in between here. So it says hello. There's a delay of 1 second. I've got this going on. Now if I let's do that, and then it'll actually do something we can detect. Let's give this a try. Another variation of these two pieces of code, and we got hello. No line there, so it's not jumping down to the next line. It's just repeating itself, but I got a little gap, so it's waiting a second, putting a little empty nothingness in between. And that's looking a whole lot better. So whether we go across or down, I can kind of manipulate what I see on my serial monitor here. So that's looking pretty good. All right, let's I don't know, maybe toy around one more time here. Let's say I wanted it to say something on one line, say hello, and then this is not going to be helpful if I jump down to the next line after saying that. So let's have it actually say something different. My name is Mr. Rauer. So say hello, we're going to wait, and then it's going to go to new line and say this. But if I don't put L in here, it's going to go through my loop and do something. What do you think it's going to do without an L in here? Let's take a look. See what this does for us. There's our hello, jump to the next line, but then it snags and puts, since I didn't tell it to jump to the next line after printing this, when it goes back to the top of my program, it puts the new hello right at the end of what I had just put up there. So that looks back to being confusing again. Now I don't know exactly what we want to do. Maybe one of these ones, maybe one hello and on one line, Mr. Brown, one line, have spaces in between. Let's just actually try to do that and see what we end up with. So we got hello, and then it's going to jump to a new line. It's going to print this, and if we want to have spaces in between for clarity, we would do something like this. Don't even need the gap in there, I don't think. We're going to jump to new line. Let's just try that. We just want to jump to a new line. We don't care about spacing what's happening on the same line. We just want it to jump down to a new line. Before it does this, we have some spaces, is what our goal was. Serial dot, and do the same thing down here. And let's take a look at that. All right, let's take a peek. All right, nice spaces. Notice it kind of shows us something and it jumps down, and that has to do with where we put the delay time in. We could actually modify things further depending on what we're trying to do. This is sort of, when you're going to be working with this, you're just going to need to look at the project and kind of adjust things. I'm constantly cursed with not typing in delay properly. I think that's the word I mess up more than any. So we're going to do a little delay here and show something, a little delay here. Let's take a look at that. See what we end up with. So now it's kind of scrolling up, showing one piece at a time, instead of showing us a couple of things and then moving things up. There's another little key or a little button over here I can hit and clear things out and start over. That's useful. I could also reach over onto my Arduino and the little reset button right down where my finger is right here. Let's see if I can show you that. It is a little red button here. I can hit this and let's see what happens. It pauses. It's actually starting the program over. So that is useful. All right, now we were trying to make a stopwatch, and this doesn't look like a stopwatch to me, so let's do some adjusting. Now we know how to take information in our program that is generating and move it to someplace else that we can look at, that a user can look at and see. So this time around, we would like to, let's actually get rid of all this because there's another little piece we need to be able to do, and that is have something count. So let's make up a variable. Let's call it j equals, actually let's come back up here. We got to tell it what j means. I make something up, some variable up, I got to define what it is, or it'll get angry. Matter of fact, let's just do this. Let's just say I say j equals, what I was about to do was say j equals j plus 1. All right, let's go. We got this. I'm going to make my little clock here. Oh, it doesn't know what j is. So we got to tell it what j is. And j is going to be an integer. I don't need to make it equal to anything like I did above, but I need to have a little semicolon at the end. So now let's try it. And now it's going to be happy. But it's not going to, we don't know what's going on. There's no LED turning on. There's nothing going on in the serial monitor. You look over here and nothing happening. So that's not a very interesting program. But it actually is counting. As it goes through the loop, this turns on the serial monitor like before, but as it goes through the loop, we should probably, I don't know, that's kind of interesting actually. What starting value is it going to select for j? That's going to add 1 to. It would be interesting to serial print the j, and then let's do that. Just a little experiment. I like doing experiments. So send it to a different line, and we want it to just print j. This is going to go really fast. I didn't put a delay in there. But I'm like in between really fast. I really wanted to see what it started with, a 0 or a 1. Let's just slow it down a little bit, to a tenth of a second here. Upload it again. A 1. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. All right, so now anyway, it's useful though because we want to make it a little counter. But what's the problem? If there's someone to look at this, we don't know what it's really trying to do. We don't know, and it's not really each time it's updating, it's not a second interval. So we have to adjust this a little bit. First off, let's have our timers. We can have our timer start out as any value we wanted to. Let's have it start out at 0 and then count upward. We can even have a count downward if you want. Matter of fact, that'd be a good side project for you to try. But let's do this one first. And so we're assigning j as a value of 0. So it's going to be first time to the loop. It's going to say we're going to add a 1 to 0, and then this will allow us to slowly count up, as you saw on the serial monitor. And we're going to be printing that, but we'd also like to have it be a second in between, because we want it to be stopwatch or a counter. In intervals, I like it to be a second, so we're going to up that to 1,000 to make it a second. And then we'd like to be a little more visually interesting. We like it to say seconds afterwards. So we have the number printed here, but afterwards we want it to say second. So we don't want it to jump a line. We want it to, we would like it to have a little space, perhaps, between the number and the word second. We can make a little space by literally putting 2 quotation marks and an emptiness in between them, a couple spaces in between them. And then this time around we are going to jump to the next line after we do this, which is to say the word seconds. Close it all up. Alright, so now it'll show us J, a little space, and then it'll say the word seconds with the line here. Then it'll jump to the next line after it goes and waits a second, goes back to the loop, adds another one to it. So let's take a look at this. If there's anything here we need to clean up or make a little better. And Mr. Browser's really big over here. See if I can make him smaller. Whoop, that grabbed the whole thing. Riddle's moving back in the corner there. Get him out of the way. Oh, it doesn't really matter. Alright, let's take a look at what we've got. And how about that? We got a little counter here, counting up. That looks pretty good. Alright, let's make this a little more complicated, but we're going to pause. I want you to figure out how would we set it up so that I wanted to start at, say, 30 seconds and started counting up from there. What would I do? So pause the video and think about what you would do. Well, of course, we would go up here and we would change where we start with. We're going to start with a 30 instead of a 0. So let's take a look at that. See if that worked. We're starting at 31 because we don't start off at 0. We start off at 1. So it's adding 1 to the 30. So I guess if I want to solve that, I got to go up here and make it a 29. Because then when it adds 1 to it, we'll have a 30 there. Alright, there we go. 30, 31. That looks nice. What do we do if we want to count down from, say, 100? I'll pause and let's get you think about how do I count down from 100 to 0. Okay, I put in 100 here. And I want to start subtracting values instead of adding them. So that looks pretty good. So we'll be putting 100 in here, subtracting. So maybe I want to go up to 101 if I want to actually include the 100. And keep subtracting one at a time. So let's take a look and see if that worked. Fabulous. How about that? All right, now if we wanted to do a few more things with it, there's some more code we need to know. If we wanted to stop it while it's running in a certain value, and there's some for and while and if loops we haven't gotten to yet. So this will be good enough for now. Just pause here to think if there's any other kind of changes we could do for this in-class work. Showed you how to set up the serial monitor, do some actual counting. Oh, there's one more thing I could show you actually. A little, instead of running J minus 1, let's see what happens if I put 2 pluses in the front. And let's take a look. Or this I didn't switch. It's still 101, but that's all right. It's not going to hurt what I'm trying to show you here. 102, 103, 104, and like, whoa, I didn't write J plus 1. So you'll learn occasionally that there's different ways to accomplish the same task. What do you think we would do if we wanted to count down instead of J minus 1? Of course, we would put in 2 minuses. Let's give that a try. Whoop, I accidentally clicked something, but it didn't do anything, so we're good. Let's put 2 minuses in the front. And after that, let's just try one more thing, and we'll call it good. Nice. Now what if I have a little more control? I just thought of, what if I wanted to count down by 5, or count up by 5 each time instead of by 1? Of course, I would come over here. You're welcome to pause the video and figure out what you would do, but if I want to go up in chunks of 5, let's go back to 0 again. And see what happens. And it did start out at 0. I really want to put in minus 5 in there. Whoop, minus 5. So when it adds 5, then it'll be a 0. If I really am interested in getting that 0 up there. There we go. That looks pretty good. All right, so basically introduced 2 lines of code, but as you can see, there's a lot of things we can do with it. The point being is if we're not letting the breadboard give us some output, let us know what's going on. And if our program's doing something, we'd like to get some feedback of what it's doing so we can use the serial monitor to show us what's going on. We'll use this quite a bit. All right, sounds good.